Another round of rate hikes, a big bet on nuclear power, and ongoing tension over the greening of Ontario's power grid. Energy is one of the key portfolios in the province, thus we always have questions. Here with some answers. Bob Chiarelli, he's Ontario's Minister of Energy and the MPP for Ottawa West Nepean, and it's good to have you back in that chair.
Pleasure to be back.
Thank you for coming back. What happened to electricity prices on the 1st of May?
Well, they went up by 2.5%. Pretty well every jurisdiction in North America has regular increases. Very, very difficult, given inflation and other costs, to be able to reduce prices. We work really, really hard at mitigating the increases. Just to give you a little anecdote, we meet regularly as a group of energy ministers from across Canada from time to time. And we were having an informal discussion with about 5 or 6 of us. And so the question was asked, what do your consumers think about your electricity prices? And 4 of the ministers in the room said they think we have the most expensive rates in North America. So there are challenges in different provinces.
Who was right about that, though?
Well, you know what? Probably none of them was right. I've got some comparables, just current comparables.
Go ahead.
Okay, so yes, we announced 2.5% increase. On the other hand, if you look at BC Hydro, rates increased by 4% on April 1st, 2016. Or Saskatchewan Power, rates approved for a 5% increase in 2015. Or Manitoba Hydro, and Manitoba incidentally has among the lowest in Canada. Okay, they applied for a rate increase of 3.95% as of April 1st, 2016. And Newfoundland Power has a rate increase of 3.6% for residential customers as of July 1st, 2016.
Okay, those are all for this year, though, right?
Well, yeah, for 2016.
Because
exactly, yeah.
Again, you
well,
can tell
one of them was for 2015. All the others were 2016.
Okay, because I think the assumption is that they may be not annual increases. They may be, the first increase in several years, where Ontarians probably suspect, we get this every year.
They're pretty well rated at least once a year, if not more than that.
Okay.
In the electricity sector.
Let's do another comparison then. You're talking about the rate of increase that each province has asked for. How about the big cities of Ontario, Toronto, Hamilton, Ottawa? What do you pay for power in those cities compared to big cities in border states?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, we've done the analysis, and vis-a-vis U.S. cities, we're significantly lower than most U.S. cities. Our cities, Ontario is much less. The rates in Europe, if you look at the cities in Europe, they're higher than the U.S. If you look at just Canada, there are a number of provinces who have lower rates than Ontario, and there are a number of provinces that we're competitive with: Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, Saskatchewan, and we're up and down, but we're in the same ballpark.
What do you pay for power in Toronto, though, compared to Chicago? Let's just do it for instance.
Oh, you're probably looking at 18 cents a kilowatt hour, or if you want to take the average, it might be less than that in Ontario. But you're looking at in the mid-20s and up to 30s in major U.S. cities.
Does that go for Ottawa and Boston too, for example?
The Ontario cities are better than U.S. cities almost across the board.
How come nobody feels that way?
Well, first of all, the Ontario Energy Board announces increases for different parts of the sector. They might announce an increase for Ontario Power Generation, which is only a component of the bill. They might announce an increase for, let's say, Hydro One, and that's for transmission, another part. And then there's conservation and global adjustment, which is another part of it. They're all components of the price, which, by the way, are very, very confusing to the public, and we have to address that particular issue. So we're doing well on a comparative basis.
Let me tell you about something I keep hearing, and you tell me if I've got this right. For years, the government has been encouraging Ontarians to conserve electricity.
Yes.
Many have. Their electricity bills, nevertheless, still continue to go up, in part because we don't use enough electricity. Therefore, the power generators are not earning enough money to pay off their debts. Does that make sense?
Well, there was an aberration announced, a short while ago in Ontario by the Independent Electricity System Operator, where there was an increase, and part of that increase was attributed to, first of all, the main part of that increase was attributed to the mild temperatures throughout this past winter. Mm-hmm. And therefore, the low consumption required, you have to cover your costs in the electricity sector, so it caused an increase to go up. But I want to speak about conservation because it's extremely important. Our long-term energy plan has a conservation-first policy because it makes a lot of sense. For every dollar we spend on conservation, it saves the system, therefore it saves rating onto your tax bill $2. So give you a couple of examples. The city of Barrie, Ontario, they used a conservation program to take all of their street lighting and convert it to LED lighting. It's saving the city $2 million a year. At the same time, the consumption goes down dramatically, and therefore there's less money to be rated to go on to be added to the cost. So it's a double benefit in terms of conservation. You take Home Depot, for example. They have 161 outlets across Ontario. Mm-hmm. Since 2012, they have saved $29 million, 29 million kilowatt hours of electricity using various conservation programs. They're saving millions off the bottom line. They're taking the equivalent of 3,000 homes off the grid. That's 3,000 homes we don't have to have expenditures for to create generation. So we save the system, and it decreases pressure on costs in the system.
Let me pick up on generation right there. And to do this next question, we're going to put up, Sheldon, if you would, everybody's favorite pie chart. Here's how we get power in the province of Ontario, this in 2015. The biggest chunk, as you can see, Minister, up, well, you know all this stuff already. 60% of our electricity is from nuclear, and then we go around from hydro, which is about a quarter, gas and oil, wind, biofuels, and solar, still very, very small. That 60% nuclear number, is that the appropriate number?
Yes, that is the appropriate number. It's appropriate number because it's called base electricity. That's the electricity that is generated 24 hours a day, usually, overnight, etc. Nuclear is very difficult to ramp up and down quickly. So, you know, you have the operator, the system, the independent electricity system operator. They have to match generation and consumption throughout the whole system, and it's a very complicated process. So the nuclear is stable. Not only is it stable, we've just agreed to refurbish 10 nuclear units, almost 10,000 megawatts at Darlington and at Bruce Power.
I'm going to get to that in a second.
Yes.
Before you go there, you know, you've seen what's happening in Germany, right? They've decided that they're going to get out of the nuclear business altogether. Yes. So I guess a lot of Ontarians are wondering whether it is right and appropriate for us to be as dependent on nuclear as we clearly are.
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to make the decision Germany made because they almost got rid of dirty coal using nuclear, and now they're going back to dirty coal. So they're making their citizens sick by creating that pollution. We are emissions free almost in Ontario now. We're at about 92-93%. We're saving $4 billion a year in environmental and healthcare costs by eliminating cheap coal. So the reason why Germany is moving off is because of Fukushima, the problem in Japan with their nuclear units as a result of the tsunami. We have a very, very strong, safe, reliable nuclear sector here, among the best in the world, if not the best. We have not had any major problems in terms of public safety in over 50 years of operation. So it's safe, it's reliable, but it's emissions-free. So when we're going into a world of climate change, it's emissions-free. 60% is coming from nuclear.
Okay, however, yes. Here's what Bradley Yock from the Consumer Policy Institute has to say, and then I'll get your feedback on his comments. He wrote in the Financial Post that demand for power in Ontario continues to decline. High-priced generators continue to be added to the grid. The province's surplus of power is growing larger, and Queen's Park has used the legislature rather than an economic test to push through the refurbishment of the Darlington nuclear plant that will, if history is an indicator, go wildly over budget. The result will be a leveraged electricity sector pumping out vast amounts of expensive electricity that isn't needed, or conversely, the system will be paying generators to sit idle. Your view?
First of all, it's not expensive. The average price over the next 30 years from both Darlington and Bruce will be about 7.7 cents per kilowatt hour into the grid. That's extremely reasonable as a price. It's emissions free in the area of trying to reduce carbon. It's an economic generator. 60,000 people working in the refurbishment and in the sector over a period of about 10 to 12 years. It's extremely reliable. And in terms of budgeting, with respect to Bruce Power, every single dollar over budget from the refurbishment will be paid by Bruce Power.
If these projects, as history has indicated and as Brady suggests in his piece, if these projects go over budget and over time, who's on the hook?
Well, let me give you an actual case. Bruce Power already did refurbishment. They were, I think, $2.5 or $3 billion over budget, and they had to eat all the costs. Now, Bruce Power is a consortium of different owners, which includes OMERS and TransCanada and Bruce Power itself. So the risk was absorbed by the generator. In terms of Darlington, that's different. It's not a consortium. It's an agency of the provincial government. Mm-hmm. We have built in off ramps. In other words, there's 6 units being built at Bruce, 4 units being built at Darlington, and we're doing them sequentially. So if we get into trouble and there are budgetary issues, we have an off ramp where we can move out of it.
Well,
so
you say
we're not married to doing the whole 4 units. We're not on the hook for the whole 4 units.
You say if we get into trouble. I mean, the last big project we did here was the new power generating tunnel at Niagara Falls, opened in 2013. It went over budget, right?
Well, but we were talking nuclear, okay, and yes,
okay, so
some
that's
projects
hydroelectric.
Over.
That's fair enough.
So it did go over budget.
50% over budget.
Well, my understanding is the budget was $1 billion and it came in at about 1.2 billion.
Okay.
So I mean, so if the person that you're quoting is talking about nuclear, then let's compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges.
Okay. I guess the point he's making though is that Ontario Power Generation, which is in charge of these things, which you own, yes. Technically, you're the overseer of this thing. Yes. It has not got a good history of coming in on time and on budget. And how do we make sure that happens this time?
Well, it does have a good record of coming in on time and on budget. And so Niagara was a case where they went over. There may be several others, but their record of coming in on budget is very, very positive.
OPGs?
OPG.
Okay, well,
yeah, OPG.
I mean, they're not that old. If you go back to Ontario Hydro and all that, which
well,
preceded them.
Yeah, but so OPG and Hydro One on the actual generation facilities. If you take the Lower Matagami, which is a recent construction or major expansion north of Timmins, they come in slightly under budget on that particular project. That was just commissioned a few short months ago.
Okay, let me ask you about green power. Everybody wants to be green. Everybody loves green. Everybody wants green, reliable, abundant, affordable electricity. The question, of course, is have we paid too much for it? Starting with the Green Energy Act during the Dalton McGuinty years and now continuing on now. Yeah. We're paying too much for the green power.
Yeah. It was more than the average price of generation in the system. What is important to note that cost has come down. There was a bonus that had to be paid to get into the green energy field that created a lot of jobs, manufacturing across. The most recent procurement from the ISO, there were 16 renewable projects. I think there were 6 or 7 wind projects. Wind came in at 8.5 cents per kilowatt hour, which is below the average generation in the grid.
What's solar at these days?
Solar is, I think they came in at about 14 or 15 cents, which is down dramatically from the 85 cents or whatever. Yeah. It's important to keep in mind that there's a trade-off here. The trade-off is that we have a clean system. We're 100% out of coal, and we're saving $4.4 billion a year in environmental and healthcare costs. So the portion of the higher cost electricity is a smaller portion. than the price that we were paying for nuclear, which is 60% generation, et cetera. So we have to make choices in government.
No, I get that.
We made a choice.
Listen, for sure.
To have a clean system.
You got to make your choices. I get
Yes.
that. And one of the choices you made is we're going to spend more than maybe the rest of the world in order to get into this field and be leaders. I get that. Dalton McGuinty was in that chair once upon a time saying we got to pick a lane, and this is the lane I want to pick.
We're not spending more than the rest of the world. If you look at
Not today, but back then.
But if you look at the reflection in prices, we're competitive in the prices.
Okay,
So-
but some are going to argue that in order to get into that field in the way that we did, we overpaid for a number of years. We made electricity too expensive, and we love the fact that we don't have any more smog days. We love the fact our kids aren't going to get asthma. We don't love the fact that businesses are complaining all the time that their electricity prices are too high.
We invested $34 billion in making the system reliable and clean, and that put some pressure on affordability. Okay, there were a lot of deficits in the system. We created a significant number of mitigation projects for residential owners in particular, but some for business as well, in order to get through the hump of those costs going through the rating period.
Basically, the taxpayers subsidize that.
But if you want to look at the Ministry of Energy website, we have a comparative chart of industrial prices. The industrial prices in Ontario are below the average in the US, and in Northern Ontario, we're the third lowest in North America. And comparing particularly to our competition in like Ohio and Michigan, New York, et cetera, we are better priced than them.
So let me be clear. If anybody says, I'm not coming to the province of Ontario to invest, to build a new business here because electricity prices are too high, they're full of it.
Well, let me put it this way, okay? Yes, if it's electricity cost to electricity cost, you're correct. There are a number of jurisdictions who have incentives that are paid, and they pay their incentives through electricity pricing. And so they can come to the table and say, we're giving you a better electricity price. The incentives that we do to attract business in Ontario are through the Jobs and Prosperity Fund, $2.5 billion, supporting the automobile industry, for example, supporting the tech industry, companies like Cisco and Ciena, et cetera. So our incentives are through cash, and they're in exchange for job creation. The incentives in the US are often in the electricity pricing. So you have to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges.
Understood.
In this particular regard. And I want to make a point where people talk about losing a lot of manufacturing companies to the US. Ontario has the most foreign direct investment of any jurisdiction in North America.
Has for a few years, I think.
Well, 2 years ago, we were third behind New York and California. We're now ahead. So investors and businesses are voting with their checkbooks. Okay, they're coming to Ontario. They're investing billions in Ontario. Ontario now, tied with BC, has 2.9% GDP, which is extremely positive, higher than anybody was anticipating.
Okay, let me do one more thing with you here, and that is, because you're the Minister of Energy, I gather you are the lead in the negotiations with First Nations that have been going on, I guess, since last fall, on the issue of what to do with the proceeds of the partial privatization of Hydro One. And to that end, I guess most of the money, the vast bulk of that money is going obviously into paying for infrastructure improvements and so on. But I gather Cabinet is having a very intense debate over whether or not First Nations ought to share in some of those proceeds because the wires cross their lands. I blogged the other day, got a couple of tips that the Premier actually broke down and cried in the midst of a Cabinet meeting because the debate at your Cabinet is so intense. Can you tell us where those negotiations are at?
First of all, in terms of the proceeds, $5 billion is going to pay down debt, and $4 billion is going into invest in infrastructure. Already, the amount that we've paid down the debt is saving the province on the fiscal side $100 million a year in interest charges. And we're ahead of our target of putting the infrastructure in. Vis-a-vis First Nations, we have a very, very positive working relationship with them in terms of how they might benefit from the Hydro One partial privatization or partial broadening of ownership.
Where are those negotiations at right now?
I can tell you that the process has been very successful, been very helpful. We have two negotiating teams, very much like two labor negotiating teams. The First Nations have one of the best investment advisors in the province of Ontario on their team. Very, very good legal advice on the team. We have our team. They have several chiefs on, and we have our people. I'm not at the table, and Chief Day is not at the table. So the negotiators are there, and they're making a lot of progress. And beyond that, that's about all I can say. I can say about the emotional component, yeah, it's an emotional issue. I would say every single member of our caucus, and certainly every member of cabinet, we want to make right what was wrong for First Nations. And so we're pulling out all stops to make that happen within our fiscal framework. For example, on the last renewable procurement of 16 contracts, there were, I think I had the number here, more than 80% of the successful projects included participation from one or more Aboriginal communities. 5 of the projects had more than 50% equity from First Nations. That's because we created a procurement process that gave points for people who partnered with First Nations. So, and we've already done some other initiatives on the social side.
But you would agree that there are members of your cabinet who are not on side with giving First Nations as big a chunk of the action as they want.
I can tell you that the process we're going through has 100% support by cabinet, and the negotiating teams are working. They're working in good faith. We had a meeting in Timmins of the energy table 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the exchange was very, very positive.
Any idea when the negotiations will finish?
You know what? I can't predict that.
No deadline
As I said,
at the moment?
It's not unlike labor negotiations. We're there in good faith. We're negotiating, and we're finding ways to get closer to an accommodation, so we're very, very happy with the relationship, and I'm very, very happy with the level of progress we're making as a government on First Nations issues.
Good. Bob Chiarelli, Minister of Energy, thanks for coming into TVO tonight.
Thank you.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit supporttvo.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.